Hey, Mike here with Canadian Musician, right now at the Strut Entertainment offices in downtown Toronto. The man with me, one of the iconic frontmen of Canadian rock, the 1980s. Big success as a songwriter right up to today, and been in the news a lot lately. Alan Frew, of course, frontman of Glass Tiger, and a very successful songwriter with, the Olympic theme, I believe. You're a part of Johnny Reed's huge hit song, Fire It Up. And, well, first of all, Alan, we'll get to the health condition in a sec, but first of all, just how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling a lot better than I was 11 weeks ago, but it's still a struggle. Mm-hmm. You know, I still have issues with my health, but, you know, every day working hard on it.
Mm-hmm. And for folks who, I guess, haven't heard through social media, through the news or whatever, shortly after finishing actually this new album right here, 80 to 90 Rewind, Alan suffered I guess what you termed a mild stroke, although it certainly doesn't feel or seem mild from what you're saying.
I equated to ordering a pizza. You can get mild, medium, and large. And I was lucky enough to get a mild one. But it's still pretty devastating, the damage that it can do. Mm-hmm. Such a small clot in the brain can do this much damage. I just can't imagine what a massive one must be like.
Mm-hmm. And, you know what? We'll come back to that. But first, let's start with the real reason we're here is the album. Like I said, 80 to 90 Rewind. It's 12 songs covering some of your peers from the 1980s, whether it's, Tears for Fears, Simple Minds, of course. And what I'm wondering is, why a covers album at this point in your career? And is it, I know you've said it was somewhat inspired by, say, Rod Stewart's classic American songbook, but in that case, he's going back covering, songs from, the 30s, 40s, 50s. In this case, you're kind of covering some of your peers from the 1980s. Does that give you a new perspective on the songs of that heyday?
I think the object was to give a new perspective on these great pop songs. With all due respect to Rod, I think it's a more difficult task because, Rod has that iconic voice. He grabs a Cole Porter song or whatever. I don't know who's going to judge him. Yeah. Like, they're going to say, oh, you didn't sing it as well as Ella Fitzgerald or whatever, right? So I don't think he faces the same critiquing of the songs that he's chosen. This was a major challenge because these songs are still very much in the forefront of, nostalgic radio and whatnot. And the beloved, iconic songs, and it was a tremendous challenge to own them, to put my own stamp on them, without taking away the essence and the purity of the originals, so that people are not going to go. I mean, someone told me, I didn't even know this, but apparently Duran Duran did like covers of Bob Dylan or something like that. Okay. That I would like to hear. It was a major challenge.
How did the idea originate? As far as, did the idea of doing a covers album come first, or did you want to do these songs specifically?
No, I'll tell you exactly what happens is you realize pretty quickly that nobody cares. Nobody cares whether Glass Tiger, Alan Frew make a new album. Yeah. Nobody cares if Bryan Adams makes a new album. Nobody cares if Jim Carrey makes a new movie. It's up to you as the artist, in whatever way you're driven, to try and create something that would make people care enough to take notice. So I realized pretty quickly that, I'll tell you what happened to Glass Tiger. I wrote a song for Glass Tiger called I Take It Back, which I feel was as good a pop song as I've ever written. And we launched it as a Glass Tiger single about 2, maybe 3 years ago. And the typical conversation with a music director of a radio station goes something like this. Hi, it's Alan. What do you think of the new song? Oh, Alan, it's fucking brilliant. I love it. It's amazing. Okay, would you play it? Oh, no, I can't play it. Well, what do you mean you love it? Yeah, well, people like it? Yeah, people love it. You'll play it? No, I can't play it. And that's it. That's the challenge. So I believe in a thing called the purple cow theory, where you have to do something a little remarkable, whatever level that's at. Yeah. And Alan Frew writing a new song for Glass Tiger and trying to get it on the radio is just not remarkable enough now. So I knew I had to do something different if I wanted people to take any notice. And I remember dabbling with the idea with EMI of me possibly doing the British Invasion.
Okay.
Until my new manager came along, Jason Murray, and we were hammering it out back and forth. And he said, what if you did your peers? What if you did the people that were your contemporaries? Some people might call it your rivals, whatever way you want to look at it. Bands that you were a fan of, you were chasing after the same thing. And I just thought, why didn't I think of that? Mm-hmm. It's a pretty cool idea. And that's how it was born.
Interesting. Like I said, you're very successful, both as Glass Tiger, but as a co-writer as well as a songwriter, obviously in your own right. To do what you have to do to kind of delve deeper into these songs, to record them themselves, do you kind of have to, well, first, has it given you a new appreciation for the songs, but has it also taught you anything about the craft of songwriting?
Absolutely. Okay, so as a vocalist, I thought this was going to be a no-brainer. I thought, I'm an accomplished vocalist. I'm really good at what I do. I have the voice to do it. It's going to be a no-brainer. Nothing could be further from the truth. The line between owning these songs and being able to perform them in such a way that people will appreciate them for, hey, Alan, this sounds like Alan. Yeah. But without denying them the relationship that they've had with the track. There's a thin red line thin red line. That's actually pointing. There's a thin line between being able to do that and it being karaoke. Yeah. And I found out pretty quickly that I was performing them like karaoke. And my producer, Jason Murray, my engineer, Sean Andrews, they fought me every step of the way. And I thought time and time and time again, I had delivered it. And they would say, no. And Jason suggested I go away for 3 weeks or a month and just live with him. And I was like, are you kidding? And then I sort of said, okay, stop. Why don't I do Someday first? Okay. This is after weeks of trying these other songs. Let's do Someday, because I know you can't judge me on that. And I performed Someday in the style that we've done it in. And everybody to a person said, wow, it's brilliant. We love it. It's a great track. And then I used that as my litmus test. That as the bar. And then I realized Peter Gabriel has to sound like that. Madonna has to sound like that. And so that was it from a vocal standpoint. As a songwriting standpoint, I realized how there was a song that I almost did by REO Speedwagon. I can't fight this feeling anymore. And when you listen to the original, it is so squashed by that 80s production that you realize that many of the 80s things were about the bells and whistles of the song. And you didn't take the time to realize just how great the song was. Yeah. And that REO Speedwagon song is a great song. I'm amazed that a country artist hasn't covered it. And so then you understand, as from a songwriting standpoint, how complex that, like, Owner of a Lonely Heart is an incredibly complex song. Peter Gabriel, In Your Eyes. Wow. I mean, it's so well crafted. Yes. But some of them are, I can't listen to the original Hold Me Now anymore by the Thompson Twins because of the production. But the song is brilliant. Yeah. So that was a real eye-opener.
Very cool. Just to back up for a second, when you say, just to clarify, when you say you're performing the songs like karaoke and that's what you had to get through, is that to say you were trying to, as a vocalist, trying to imitate the original artist rather than singing them yourself?
I probably unwittingly, unknowingly was sort of doing that. Yeah. Just not really paying attention. And then, my engineer would say, we have these almost code words. It's like, try it in your opera voice. I know what he means by that.
Yeah.
Try it in your Paul McCartney voice. Try it in your real Paul Rogers rock voice. But every time I would do it, I was probably unwittingly trying to be like Peter Gabriel, trying to be like John Waite. And it wasn't until I found that place where it was all about the Alan Frew voice that everybody has known for all these years. That was the moment of truth of my delivery.
Interesting. To return back to the songwriting part, like you've talked about just how well crafted the songs are when you strip away what you say that 80s production. But for yourself, do you think this will, as you move forward as a songwriter, in any way do you think having gone through this exercise of deconstructing these songs will leave any mark on you as a songwriter? Do you take anything from it?
No, I mean, as a songwriter, I appreciate the great nature and the how well crafted these songs are. That these are great pop writers. These original artists that wrote them were at the top of their game. As a songwriter, I don't think it'll change my approach to how I songwrite.
Yeah, fair enough. When it comes to, you explained how it came about as far as, rather than doing the British Invasion covers album, you decided to cover your peers, that kind of thing. But once you decide to cover your peers, and this may seem like an obvious question, but how do you decide actually what specific 12 songs you're going to recover? Did you cover more than these 12 and whittle it down? Like, how was that process?
We dabbled with maybe a couple more, but it's an interesting question. What we did was once we agreed that we're going to do the 80s, then we kind of put up 200 songs on a computer. Then there's crap in there. We've all written crap, all of us. Yeah. I've written crap. Peter Gabriel's written crap. Madonna's written crap. So you weed the crap out, and then you say you're left with 100, and then you look at the ones that are pretty obvious that even though they were iconic songs and big hits, it's not going to work. Yeah. Like a Virgin, by Madonna. What was that? Dead or Alive, You Spin Me Right Round. I ain't doing that. So you weed that out and you get it down to about maybe 50. And then you try and look for songs that you really feel you can deliver. I think I knew I could deliver John Waite and Peter Gabriel and whatnot. So then that narrows it down a little bit. And then I looked for certain songs that were iconic, songs that kind of transcend generations. You can say to a 25-year-old, do you know Don't You Forget About Me by Simple Minds? And they go, nah. But then you tell them about the movie and boom, oh, are you kidding? So there's that kind of thing, right? And so you try and find the songs. And then bands or artists that I was a fan of. Yeah. And it gets easier and easier to find them.
Well, yeah, like on that is, did you start with the songs? Did you say, what are 100 iconic songs? Or did you say, what are the most iconic artists? And then from there, look at their songs? No,
we really threw the genre, like throwing darts at a dartboard. What was going on in the 80s? Yeah. Look back. And then it really is like a funnel. Yeah. It's a funnel process. And that's how you kind of do it. You send it down a funnel, and then they get more and more iconic. They get they're better, well written and well crafted songs that funnel down. It takes a lot for me to say I'm a fan of that song, and that narrows it down. So it's a funneling process.
Is this something you could see? Like, I know to go back to the Rod Stewart thing, I know he has said he didn't intend for it to be, 5-6 volumes or whatever it ended up becoming with the Great American Songbook Collection. He did it once. It went very well, obviously. Kept doing it. Is that something you could see at this, or is this really like, I got it out of my system, that's over now?
No, I funny enough, I was actually with Rod. Oh, really? I was with him when this was coming about. And his fear at the time, I remember him mentioning, I don't want to be thought of as an old fogey or as an old guy too soon. And that's, my 2 cents worth was, no, once you put your Rod Stewart stamp on it, it just becomes Rod. And of course, look what happened. Yeah. I think I would deliberately say that I would move on and do another volume. Really? I truly believe that we're in a phase of life. I'm not sure, how old are you, may I ask?
29.
29. So when my brother was 29, I was a teenager, and he was a lot older than me, and he thought the 60s were going to be here today and gone tomorrow, because he was listening to pre-Beatles. He was into the Big Bopper and Jerry Lee Lewis and whatnot, and that was music. And he thought that the 60s were going to be fleeting. And I was listening to Herman's Hermits, the Beatles, the early Stones and whatnot. And it changed the face of music. I truly believe that the 80s are going to become a classic era where people your age and maybe a little younger, are going to gravitate to it and see it as a moment in time, a generation of great, well-crafted pop songs and a lifestyle.
Yeah. I would say that's already starting to happen. You're seeing a lot, well, in all areas, whether it's movies, fashion, music, you're seeing a lot of 80s nostalgia now. But as a person who reads about music a lot, and I'm seeing a lot of revisiting and reassessing of a lot of 80s music. But you brought it up, that 80s production. Like 80s music has a very definitive sound style of production to it, more so than I would say most other decades. Like 60s music, production-wise, can still sound, same as something released today or released in the 90s, same with the 70s. The 90s kind of went back to that more straight-ahead production style, but the 80s sounds like the 80s. Do you think that impacts, for good or bad, the way that music will now be assessed?
Absolutely. I think that even some of my own production from the 80s kind of bugs me. Yeah. Because I know what can be done now. Now, there's two sides to it. There's a loving, a beloved approach to these classic tracks. That it's kind of like when you hear that Boasting sound of the 70s, there's something endearing about that that is the attraction. But there's also that part where you go, are you kidding? I can't do it. I don't, it's like a Chinese torture. So it's two sides to the coin. Yeah. I do think that, there may be people that will listen to this album and go, oh, I kind of love my old version of Madonna's Live to Tell. Yeah. But I do know that there's a ton of people that are, this was about my voice. We wanted to showcase my voice. We wanted to make it organic. We wanted to strip it down a little bit. So there are a lot of people that have come to me and said, oh, I never liked that song until you did this. So I'm kind of digging that. I'm digging that song. A lot of people have said, oh man, Owner of a Lonely Heart, forget it. I hated that song. So I'll take that. I myself, it's more from, again, the songwriting standpoint. I strip them down and I really get to go, wow, what a song. What a great song. So I'm glad that I'm happy to leave the 80s production behind, but it doesn't leave the 80s behind.
Yeah, very well said. And to return to your health and the stroke, and I won't make you recount, how it all went down, because I know you've done that many times recently and people can easily find that out. But as far as, you've been very open, when it happened, shortly after you happened, you announced it on Facebook, and you've been very public in your recovery and everything like that. Essentially, why is that? Is there like a conscious effort to educate people on strokes? Like, why have you been so public about it all? I'll
kind of work backwards. The first reason I went public was because I was new to Facebook, and I'm just a newbie at Facebook, and already on private messenger, people were texting me in the hospital saying, you know, they didn't know I was in the hospital, but they were saying, you know, thinking of you, get well. And I'm like, how do they know this? And it dawned on me that probably some hospital staff couldn't help themselves, and they went public and they said, guess who we've got in with a stroke. So I thought I was just going to go public to a few fans and say, hey, I've had a stroke and I'll get better. I had no idea it was going to go viral. Once it went viral, then the media were coming to me looking for interviews and whatnot. Just by my nature, I'm a health teacher. That's just who I am. And I'm a communicator. And I like to talk about believing. I've done it for years, believing in yourself and fighting the good fight. And I've done a lot of public speaking. I've written a book about it. So it was just second nature to me to say, if my cholesterol is high and I'm suffering from hypertension, and it's a silent killer, and this has happened to me, I need you to know that it can happen to you. And do you know what your blood pressure is? Do you know what your cholesterol levels are at? And so thousands of people have written to me saying, you know, you helped save my life because my cholesterol was through the roof, or my husband's been stubborn for all these years, and he was one pint of Guinness away, he was one sandwich away, he was one Kentucky Fried Chicken away from a heart attack or a stroke. And so I'm happy to be the public servant of that.
How quickly, because you didn't realize right away that a stroke is what had occurred, it happened in your sleep, and as you said, the symptoms started slowly progressing throughout the next day. Once you got that diagnosis, the doctors told you you'd had a stroke and the right side of your body had started to go paralyzed. Just how quickly did your thoughts turn to your career? Like, how quickly did you think, will I be able to perform again? Will I be able to sing again?
Instantaneously. Instantaneously. I probably thought, am I going to die? Is this my death coming? I remember that. I remember thinking about my family, especially my little girl. She's only 11. And I thought, is she going to live without her father? I thought about living death. I thought about what happens if I'm really, I can't speak, I can't move, I need cleaned, I need fed. And that all happened instantaneously. And then I went, oh man, what a time for this to happen. I've got this great album. I want to sing. Am I ever going to sing again? That was really high up.
I know it impacted your arm, your legs, the right side of your physical body. How much did it impact your voice? Could you speak and sing normally?
I could speak as well as I'm speaking to you now. I had a bit of a short-term stutter, a stammer, and a thought process of trying to grab the word. Yeah. That lasted about a week or two, but I was okay. I was like this. Yeah. But mentally, I'm starting to feel, even now, I'm getting lightheaded. There's a whooshing thing that happens in my brain. I feel a disconnect to my brain and my body, but I hope that passes with time.
What is the timetable now? Is the end in sight to, as far as being completely back to normal? And is that different from when you can be in performance shape?
I don't think there's any deadline on it, but I'd like to think that by get through the winter and by early spring, I'd like to think I can tackle it. I want to use rehearsals as my litmus test for my energy and for my therapy. So I'd think if I can sing 20 minutes to 30 minutes to one day, take a day off, next day, to eventually I'm in rehearsals for 2 weeks straight. That'll be the test.
Interesting. Lastly here, having gone through that experience, has it changed your mindset of course, it's going to change your mindset, especially personally and in your private life. But has it changed the way that you're going to approach your career from now on?
I would have to say yes and no. I'm on the last question. I'll be right there. This is the last thing. I'd like to say yes and no. Yes, it's changed my life because obviously it took me to the brink and gave me a look at my mortality. I really realized that I'm going to die one day, and I thought that that was the day I was going to die, and I didn't. And so it put me in touch with my mortality, and in doing so, it put me on a new pathway of how to eat, how to drink, how to sleep, how to approach a lifestyle that we should all be living. And that I see my friends, like tomorrow I will go for my 1 pint of Guinness that I'm allowed, and I'll socialise with my friends that will devour 10 pints of Guinness and 4 bottles of wine and fish and chips, and I just won't do that. And I'll wish that they didn't do it, but they do it. So from a lifestyle standpoint, it has changed my life. From who I am as Alan Frew, my determination, my drive, how I approach singing and recording and performing. Maybe I'll find out when I get out there and perform that the things I'll have to do pre-show. Maybe I won't be able to do 2 shows back to back. Maybe I'll take a day off in between every time. But generally speaking, no, it won't change me a bit.
Well, Alan, I know you've been doing a lot of interviews and are busy. I really appreciate you taking the time. New album, once again, 80 to 90 Rewind. Well, any thoughts on any plans, even if they're soft plans, as far as when you will hit the road or any dates like that?
I would probably say that I'm going to spend the rest of the winter just building up my strength. And I know that I've been talking to agents, and we all kind of use the word or words early spring. That's sort of the way we speak.
Fantastic. Well, Alan, once again, thank you, and
absolute pleasure.
Best of luck with your recovery. I hope it goes even better than hoped and planned, and it's great to see you back.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much.